Okay, I might as well give you some leading while we're waiting for Ricky. You know, my name's Ron. I'm an alcoholic. I'd like to welcome all you guys to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group's one-day convention in Doylestown, our first annual one-day convention in Doylestown. Let's grab some seats. Our group meets every 8:30 p.m. at this church, St. Paul's, 301 North Main Street, Doylestown, PA. And, you know, we try to bring in convention and round up level speakers every week, and we do that for fun and for free. We provide food. We usually have hot sausages, hot dogs, ham sliders, a whole bunch of stuff. In fact, we'll have some hot dogs arriving tonight. My faithful wife, the king of the stove, is, I think she went home to chef some of them up. So if you like hot dogs, that'll be exciting. And if you don't, write inventory. All right. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for. Ricky said, yeah, let me just read what we got for Rick. Something catchy, right? I never remember what it, oh, here it is. Steps 8 and 9, refusal of retribution. This is good. Please welcome Ricky from Philadelphia.
What's up, guys? My name's Rick, and I'm an alcoholic. I have a sobriety date. My sobriety date is November 29th of 2005, and I do have a sponsor. And he probably wishes that he wasn't my sponsor, but he is. And I have a home group. My home group is the Stepping Stones. We meet on Saturday nights. We'll be meeting at 8 o'clock tonight and every Saturday night. And it's an hour speaker format. And I like that speaker format because I get to go in and hear the message for 1 hour. I get to sit still for 1 hour, and I don't have to share. I don't have to hear anybody else share. And I can hear the power of God and the power of sponsorship week in and week out. And week in and week out, I got club box seats to a miracle. I watch these young kids come in and week out, broken and battered, the same way I came in, bloody and soiled and stained. And in a very short period of time, they get a sponsor. And next time I see them, they got a big book under their arm, and they're asking questions about how to write a 4-step and how to make amends. And so I don't have to go very far to see the power of God. Every Saturday night I get to see it. And in the meetings I go to, I get to see it. And one of the lines in step 9 is that we have a new job to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. And the people about me are usually my parents, you guys, and my job. And after going through the first 7 steps and making a list of my amends, I need to carry that spirit back in all those occupations and affairs. And one of the ways God uses me is through sponsorship. And how am I going to get through? You know, and most of the kids in my home group, they're kids. I mean, they're like, some of them could be my grandkids. How am I going to get through to them? And God will use anything. And I have experience with that. There was this young kid, he would come into our home group every Saturday, and he would sit in the back just like me, and there was a wall that went up, and he wouldn't look nobody in the eyes just like I couldn't. And I would ask him each week, I said, how you doing? And I would get him a cup of coffee, and one-word answers. And winter time came, and he asked me for a ride back to his recovery house. And I said, sure, absolutely. But that was a Saturday morning. Friday night, one of my sponsees was speaking out in York. And what happens on these road trips, when I go out with these 22-year-old guys and 22-year-old girls in the back seat, and they take my phone and they put Pandora on. And they put music on that I would not normally listen to. And usually by mile 4, I want to scrape my head along the sidewalk. And so this Saturday morning, when I got in my car, for some reason I had my phone in my painter's pocket right here, painter's pants in his pocket, side pocket, and Pandora kicked on, and Meek Mills came on. And that kid looked up at me and goes, you listen to Meek? I went, yup. I do not listen to Meek Mills. I don't know about Meek Mills. But in that moment, I was not some crusty old head in my home group. And I got him to ask me to help him through the process of the 12 steps, and he's good today, and it's an amazing process. And, you know, my sobriety date is 2005, but my first Alcoholics Anonymous meeting was in 1999. And I'm the kind of guy that would bounce in and out of the fellowship, and I would come in. My first rehab was in 1999. I would come to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I had no idea what it was that I suffered from. And I know what it's like to sit in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and feel like I'm dying, and trying to stay away from that first drink, and I can't pull it off. I also know what it's like to sit in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous with a year sober, with a house in Mayfair section of Philly, with 2 cars, a beautiful girlfriend, and I know I'm drinking, I just don't know when. So I've experienced all that, because I'm the kind of guy, I come in and I sit in the back of the room and I judge everybody, and I would say, yeah, he owns his own roofing company. He didn't put $1 in the basket. Cheap. I'm like, oh, she's going to share the same thing she shared last week. Just get a new boyfriend. You know. And I would come in and I would judge my way right out of rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'll tell you, the best way to describe my drinking is I left for senior week at 17 and came back at 42. That's the best way to describe it. You know, alcohol worked for a long time. Alcohol worked for a long time for me, until it didn't. I know what hopeless is like. There's no hope in the next bottle. There's no hope in sobriety, and you're sitting in the middle of AA, and it's horrible. And I will come in and out, because I'm the kind of guy, I come in, and there's a weird thing that happens here, where, like, I'm walking Kensington Avenue trying to get more booze, and the outsides are dirty, and the insides are dirty. There's an evenness to that. I'm doing dirty stuff to get money for drinking, and my insides are dirty. Then I usually get 12 steps. I go into a halfway house or some recovery house, and then usually what happens is they start feeding you mac and cheese. You put a little bit of weight on, and now I'm only about 90% alcoholic. And then I would go to a couple meetings, and some guys would remember my name now. I'm 50% alcoholic. I would get a job interview, 40% alcoholic. Someone would give me a pair of sneaks and a hoodie, 35% alcoholic. I would get a job, 20% alcoholic. I go to a meeting and some girl smiles at me, 5% alcoholic. I get paid and go on a date and you can't find no more alcoholism left in that. And I would do that time in and time over and over again. And this time around, it wasn't like that. November 28th of 2005, I was panhandling in Northeast Philly. I came to behind a dumpster in the mall at Roosevelt Boulevard and Red Line Road, and I came to, and I haven't bathed or shaved or showered in months, and I looked like it, and I smelled like it, and I had 50 cents in my hand, and I was making a beeline for this young girl for my sales pitch to get money out of her, and I don't ask for change, I ask for fives. I want that home run right away, and I'm making my beeline to her, and she seen me coming, and she had a little girl. I don't have children, but she had a little girl with her. I'm assuming it was her daughter, and she picked her up by her ears, and she threw her in the back seat of the car. And she didn't have automatic locks, so she had to turn the lock each door by hand. And every time she hit a door lock, it just got louder and louder and louder, and it was snowing. And when she backed out of her parking spot, nearly running me over, I caught my reflection. Even though it was snowing, I caught my reflection in her window. And for the first time in months, I saw what I looked like, and I didn't like it. That's not me. I was raised better than that. I had morals. And when I'm on the avenue doing dirty stuff, it just didn't feel right. I had to be there, but it didn't feel right. Some of the guys I was running with, it felt right. They didn't care. I cared. And I had 50 cents in my hand. I was going to make a phone call. I was going to throw myself in front of the next bus or truck or anything that came down the boulevard. And I made a phone call to my buddy. And he never used to answer his phone back then, and he answered his phone. And that was the first piece that was the first instance that I saw God working. And he said, just get to my house. And 7 hours later, I walked from Red Line to Boulevard to where the stepping stones is. And if anybody knows where that is, you don't want to walk that on a good day. I walked it. It took me a long time to get there. And he took one look at me, and he said, you can't live here looking like that. He said, but I have a house around the corner you can live in, and you can live in it for as long as you want, but you can't drink in it. And he said, you have to go to AA. He walks me around the house, and if you're like me, I walk in this house was really nice, and I painted it. I had 13 months of continuous sobriety at one time before my last relapse. So I painted the house, I knew the house, and I walk in and I'm looking, and if you're like me, you notice one thing, you notice the copper tubing. I'm like, well, I can hang here for a minute. 'Cause I know he ain't staying, I'm just gonna take the copper with me. And I know what you're thinking, dude. He's there. If you want the copper, you can take it. See, I'm looking for an argument, and I don't get it. He's there. If you want the copper, you take it. But I'm looking at you, and you got a wristband on from the county jail, CF around the corner. And he's there. It's made out of paper, and you can't even pull it off your hand. He's there. If you want it, you can have it. And he left. Now I'm in this house, and I don't know what to do with myself. And about 5 minutes later, a member of Alcoholics Anonymous came in. And he wasn't sent by the Stepping Stones or by Intergroup or New York City or General Services. He heard another alcoholic was dying, and he came to do the 12-step. And he came in with 2 big bucks. Now, if you're like me, that's not what you want to see. I'm here to offer you spiritual help. I'm like, no, it will be spiritual help, $4,500, a lawyer, and if your girlfriend has a friend that will like me, that would be great. That would be spiritual help. And he asked me one question. He said, he collar popped and dropped the mic long before it became popular on Facebook. He asked me a question. He said, do you think sobriety is your problem, or do you think drinking is your problem? I said, drinking. And he lit up his cigarette, and he looked at me in disgust. He was just like, and he walked out. And he got what any good sponsor wants. He got me to chase him. I'm like, what was that, the wrong answer? He said, well, think about it. He said, you just had 13 months of continuous sobriety, and you had, right, and you picked up a drink. So if you had 13 months of continuous sobriety, how could drinking be your problem? He said, you're sober is your problem. You don't know how to live sober. With elderly parents, with a girlfriend, with a job. And whether I drink again or not, that one question changed my life forever. And I started a process here. He would often ask me a lot of questions, and as we started this journey, something started to happen to me that I can't explain. And in that fourth step, I saw what kind of human being I was. Didn't like it. It was not me, but it was me. Because I had such a profound experience in that fourth column. My sponsor made me sit in that fourth column until column 2 became a lie. And I saw what kind of brother I was. I saw what kind of son I was. I saw what kind of uncle, what kind of coworker I was, what kind of neighbor, what kind of boyfriend I'd been. I didn't like it. So because out of that fourth column, I saw in black and white. I saw me for the first time, in my own handwriting, on paper. And so step 5 became very easy. Step 6 and 7 became very easy. Not that I knew what I was doing, but I saw it. And from that fourth step came my 8-step list. And there's a line, and there's a paragraph in here. I just want to tell a little story. It says that their defects may be glaring, but the chances are that our own defects are partly responsible. So we clean house with the family, asking each morning in meditation that our Creator show us the way of patience, tolerance, kindness, and love. You know, a couple years ago, I had revisited an amends with my mom. And I came out of the bathroom. It was Thursday night. It was chicken cutlet night, so I wasn't going to miss that. It wasn't like I'm a noble son and I was just going there to see how Mom was. It was chicken cutlet night. And I asked my mom, I said, Mom, I came out of the bathroom and my mom sat on the couch and I said, Mom, tell me again how I hurt you. And I'm standing above her and she said, okay. And she got my hand and she yanked me down on the couch. And she went through the whole spiel, how I turned my mom into a liar. My mom never cursed a day in her life. My mom never lied a day in her life, and I turned her into a liar. Whenever I was in rehab, or whenever I was in some psych ward, where I was locked up, that's the only time my parents went on vacation. And she pulled me down, and she told me those things, again. And I said, Mom, how can I make this right? And she said, keep going to those classes. Just don't drink, and keep hanging out with your buddies, and be part of the family. And I said, okay. And now my mom was 84 or 82 at the time. And I had asked her, I said, would you want to go back to my mom's from Scranton. I said, Mom, you want to go back to Scranton and visit your friend Annie? This lady Annie, she was like an aunt when I would go up there and visit. And they've been in contact since the second grade. Once a week on Thursday afternoons, they would call each other. And I said, Mom, I'm going to go visit Annie? She said, absolutely. She said, how am I going to get there? I said, I'll take you up. She said, you? She said, that's not like you to do something. And what she was saying was, what's in it for you? Right. And I'm like, she said, if you want to go, we'll go next Friday. So that was on Thursday afternoon. Next Thursday, I go back over for chicken cutlet night again. And she's on the phone with Annie, and Annie got diagnosed with terminal cancer. She has a month to live. So Friday, I take her up, and this is how God works. The first thing we do is go to visit my grandfather's grave. As I pull up to the grave, my cousins and my uncles there from Harrisburg, who I owe money to all of them. I'm like, this was not a good idea. And so I make my amends to my grandfather at the gravesite, and my mom's talking to him. I get back in my car and I go to Sheets. I tap the ATM machine. I took out $400 and I paid each one of my cousins I owe money to. Left the cemetery, we went back to Annie's house for them to meet. Now, I'm like, what am I going to do for the next 4.5 hours? Because I'm selfish and self-centered. And I said, this is not a good idea. This is not a good idea at all. And we walking in the house, and my mom and Annie grasp. They just hug each other and they start weeping. Now, I don't know what to do. I'm like, what do I do? So Annie goes, there's a TV downstairs. Why don't you just go turn on TV? I go downstairs, I put on ESPN, and I'm trying to watch the TV, but I can hear them upstairs laughing and crying, talking about their old boyfriends. I'm like, yo, Mom, I'm right here. I can hear everything. I said, I'll tell Daddy in 1 minute. Right? And about 4 hours goes by, and we're leaving, and they start hugging again. There's all three of us hugging, and Annie says, next time you see me, I'll be in a coffin. And we leave. And on the way home, and this is my mom and Pete's story, and on the way home, we hit this storm. It was this horrendous thunderstorm where you couldn't even see the front of your car. We pull off on the side of the turnpike. And I went to go turn the radio on, and when I turned the radio on, I had a CD of Pete in. And I went to go turn it off, and my mom went, she said, no, let's listen to it. I'm like, all right, Mom. And it was in Pete's story where he's really bad, and he's in that hallway, and he does a backslide down the wall, and it's the end of his drinking, and we're listening to it. And my mom, I have my hand on the gear shift. My mom puts her hand on my hand, and she whispers over to me. She's like, Pete's really bad. I'm like, I know, Mom, he's really bad. And she goes, thank God you weren't as bad as he was. I know, Mom. She said, I'm going to pray for him. I'm going to pray for him. I pray that he finds a nice girl. That's what all Italian moms want, right? And last Friday, I'm leaving to go to a meeting, and I leave, and my mom asked me how Pete is. My mom doesn't know what day it is. My mom has dementia, but she remembers Pete. And she's been praying for him every day since. I said, Mom, he's really bad, just keep praying for him. And That's how God works. And my hardest amends I had to make was with my parents. I was resentful of my parents. They had me locked up. I could not wrap my head around why they would do that. And so I'm about a month sober, and my sponsor calls me, and he says, "Are you hungry?" That's the wrong answer. I'm living in a recovery house. I'm not working. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm hungry. Of course I'm hungry. I'm starving." He said, "You want to go eat?" I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." Comes and picks me up, and we drive up Cotman Avenue, and we pass by McDonald's. We passed by Tiffany's Diner. We passed by Dunkin' Donuts. And I said, "We're not going to eat, are we?" He was like, "Nope." And my parents had a restraining order at the time. And my first sponsor, Danny, read how it works. And he got to know my parents. So he set it up where I had 5 minutes to make my amends to my mom and dad. And I walk in. My dad has the Inquirer. Like this. He goes like this and walks out of the room. He goes, my mom's sitting on the couch, and I said, "Mom," and she says, "You have 4 minutes and 35 seconds. She said, "What do you have to say?" And I said, "I was wrong. I was wrong." I explained to her what I was wrong for. I stole her peace of mind. I stole her spirituality. I turned her into a liar, because the kind of guy I am, I put mom against dad, I put dad against sister, I put the whole family, nieces against nephews, nieces against grandmoms. That's what I do. And she said, "You hurt me." I said, I asked for her forgiveness. She said, "Absolutely. You're my youngest son. I absolutely forgive you. You have 3 minutes and 35 seconds. And I said, "Mom, is there anything else I did to hurt you that I might have left out?" And she said, "Yeah." Now this is 2005, or the beginning of 2006. And she said, "Yeah. In 1985, our relatives came here from Italy for Thanksgiving dinner. You lived in this house, and you never showed up once. And that hurt me. I watched my mom get 20 years younger before my very eyes. My mom hasn't been sick since, other than the dementia. And my mom was very sickly. The whole time I was drinking and drugging, my mom was always sick. That's the power of amends here. What happens for me going through the amends process, I started to reverse the karma. I don't know if anybody else is like, I'm not a good luck magnet. In our fifth step promises, it talks about being delighted. I haven't been delighted in years. There was nothing going on in my life. And what happened, it started to reverse the karma. And it started making me feel like I'm worthy of God's grace and taking responsibility for my actions. Being driven by a defect or being driven by booze is different. It's easy. I can see step eight's an actual step. I thought it was just something we just skip over. It's an actual step, and my job is to make the list and pray for the willingness. Step nine, God's job is to provide the willingness and give me an opportunity to make amends. And the minute I became willing to make amends, something started to shift. There was a shift in the universe. Something started to happen, and my son sponsor goes, "Is anybody on here not willing to make amends to him?" I'm the right answer. I'll make amends to all of them. I wasn't really willing to make amends to anybody. And I'll tell you what happened. I go to Dunkin' Donuts, and there's my ex-girlfriend. I haven't seen her in 25 years. And I go to Dunkin' Donuts, and there she is. I'm like, oh, shit. And my buddy's like, "Go ahead, dude, make amends." He says, "I'll be right here watching." Because it says, wherever possible, not whenever. My whenever would never be never. So I go up to her. I go to Dunkin' Donuts to get my coffee. She's in her car, and she's smoking a cigarette, and it just snowed, and it's snowing, a little bit of snowing out, and the window is cracked like this much. So she's not paying attention. She's on her phone. So I reach in with both fingers on the windows, and I scared the crap out of her. She looked up. She was like, "Whoa," right? And she seen that it was me. She rolled up her window on my fingers and backed out of the parking spot. thank God my buddy had his truck behind her, so she couldn't get too far, but she was kind of dragging me along. That's the damage I do to people. That's what I do to people. You know, a little while longer, I got my job back. I got one of my jobs back, and I was bartending at the Wells Fargo Center, and these are people that weren't even on my list. This girl wasn't even on my list, and I'm in there bartending. The game's getting ready to start. Flyers are playing the Devils. It's a big crowd, and in comes one of my exes with her daughter. I dated her. Her daughter was like this, and now she's like this, right? And her daughter comes up to the bar to get a drink, and she sees me. She starts shaking. I didn't even know I hurt her. I hurt Mom. I hurt the rest of the family. And during intermission, I seen her go to the bathroom. When she came out of the bathroom, she just looked at me. She turned white. And I asked her, I said, "Can I have 5 minutes of your time?" And she said, "Absolutely not." And I had to let that be. You know, going through this process, I could be counting on amends. I've made most of my approaches very early on, and some people can't be seen. A book's pretty clear about this, and I let that go. Bygones be bygones. And I did hit her up on Facebook a couple years later, and she said, "I'm glad you're doing good. I see you on Facebook. I'm glad you're doing good, but there's no need for any longer dialogue between me and you. It's over. It's a wrap." And not that I wanted to go back at her because she was happily married, but she didn't want to hear nothing, and I got to live with that. So some things we got to live with, you know. And some people can't be seen. It's funny. I came out of jail and I was very prejudiced, and it's pretty funny how God works. The first two guys they asked me to take them through the process were two African American guys, and I'm very prejudiced. And I came out of there and I said, "Yeah, you got a sense of humor, God." And Ray was the first guy I took through the steps, and he had cerebral palsy. And I fell in love with this kid. He was a young kid, but he was not expected to live very long, and he was one of us. And I literally had to pick him up everywhere and put him in my truck. He used to like to ride in the back of the truck. So I would pick him up, put him back in my pickup truck, and it was summertime. We would just take him to meetings and stuff. And the next guy that asked me to sponsor was also an African American guy, and he had one amends to make that he couldn't make. It was his father, and his father was buried in West Philly, and he's passed away obviously. And I said, "We have to go to his gravesite." And it's one of the biggest cemeteries in the city. We had no idea where the tombstone was. He's like, "I think it's over here." I'm like, "Oh my, there's got to be 500 tombstones." And now it's pouring rain, and I parked my truck, and we just start walking down tombstones looking for the name. And I'm soaking wet. I'm getting back in my truck. When you find it, you let me know. And this guy, he's walking, and it's muddy, and he's soaking wet, and all of a sudden, I don't see him. I look over, nothing. So I get out of my truck, and there he is. He's in the mud, hugging the tombstone, making amends to his father. And I walk over. Now I'm not a crier. I'm like, oh my God. So I get down on my knees, and we both started praying. I'll tell you what, it was one of the most powerful experiences that I ever had in Alcoholics Anonymous thus far, where I watched this kid get free. I watched this kid get free with the resentment towards his father for all these years, you know. And a couple other lines in here I just wanted to read. You know, Peter talked about spiritual muscles, and in step 9 is where I started. You know, I didn't believe in God. I'm the kind of guy, I didn't believe in God. I didn't want to hear about God. And my sponsor was smart. He knew that if I got in service to a home group, that I would start to realize some things. Because my sponsor, I'm like, "Dude, I'm not going back to AA. I ain't going back to AA." He's like, "What are you talking about?" He said, "It don't work." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I was in AA for 6 years. Don't work." He said, "Let me ask you a couple questions." He said, when you relapsed, were you hearing footsteps?" taking guys through the steps. I'm like, no. He said, were you sitting quietly, acknowledging His power that keeps you sober? I'm like, no. He said, you didn't even have a sponsor, so I know you weren't doing a 10-step. He said, where were you in the men's? Did you make all your amends? I'm like, all. He said, there's 4 things that AA asked you to do that you never did, so how dare you say AA don't work? Because when you relapse and you're sitting on some bar stool or some psych ward or some jail cell, how dare you say AA don't work? AA works fine, you just didn't work it. And I think that AA doesn't work for us. I look at Chris and I look at Peter and I look at Richie and all the other guys that spoke here. I look at you guys. I think AA works because we work for it. And my sponsor got me a job at my home group to start making coffee. And the more I served Alcoholics Anonymous, the clearer God became. And Chris talked about the 7-step prayer, about usefulness. And I just want to be happy. I don't know about anybody else. I just want to be happy, 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 joyous, and free. And I'm that guy for 6 years. Yo, Rick, it's good to see you. Good to be seen. I would just slap you with slogans. Hey, Rick, how you doing? Living a dream. And he was quite clear about that. And part of this process, going back, it puts the ghost to rest. It puts the ghost to rest. And I can't have a relationship with God. And my sponsor told me stories about the Bible. I don't know if he was a Bible guy, but it made sense. I'm only a month sober. I don't know. I'm just listening to what he's telling me. And he's like, how's your prayer life going? I'm like, I don't know. He said, I'm not feeling nothing. He said, you want to know why I'm not feeling nothing? Because step 8, 9 comes before step 11. I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, this is what happens. Sign of the cross. The up post is a relationship with God, and this post is a relationship with other people. And you haven't gone back and cleaned up your relationships with other people yet. And there's a line in the Bible, I believe it's in the Bible, I guess that's what he was quoting from. He says, back in the day, people would bring offerings to the temple. People would bring offerings, and usually like animals or gold or incest. And there was a wise man that said, listen, if you have to make peace with your brother, or you have a beef with your brother, go make peace, and then your offerings will be accepted. I'm like, what does that have to do with anything? He said, your offerings are your prayers. That's why steps 8 and 9 come before step 11. And then when you have a prayer life and a meditative life, you're going to start to feel something. And what happened was I started making some amends. I started going to some meetings, and I could hear what the speaker was talking about. And I finally heard the sweet voice of a loving God I can lock into, and it moves me. Never experienced that before. I went to a ton of Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. I never felt that. And I started making some amends. And my sponsor moved me right into steps 10, 11, and 12. I made a few amends, moved right into 10, 11, and 12. So what happened was I was taking guys through the 12 steps. I started reading other material and doing page 86 out of the big book like it talks about, doing a good 10-step like every 15 minutes, and then going back and making my amends. And something started to happen that I can't explain other than God couldn't wrote a few were solved. Something alcoholic, where it says in there, A, B, and C of how it works. I'm an alcoholic, and my sponsor made it perfectly clear. I'm an alcoholic, drunk or sober. And my first step says that I'm drinking again. So when I'm balking, because step 9 was a balking step. Anybody else balk? I'm a balker. Step 4, balk. Step 9, balk. Step 12, balk. And he's there. What's your experience say if you don't go back and make these amends, you're going to stay sober? I'm like, no. And he made it perfectly clear to me that I'm making my amends because of the first half of step 1. A lot of guys that I've taken through this process, what happens is sometimes our life gets so big. Like AA works so good, we drink again. And what I mean by that is guys come in, guys I work with, like myself, I never did any of these 12 steps. I've taken guys through the first 9 steps and had this amazing experience. And they start sponsoring guys, and they left off big chunks of step 9. And their life gets good. And they get the job, they get the girl, they get the babies, they get the degrees, and it's those blessings that sometimes hang us. Because the fruits of our recovery sometimes can damage us. And thank God none of that shit happened for me. Thank God. Thank God. None of that good stuff came for me for a long time. And it's still, and I'll compare myself to when I got here, because when I got here, I was way better off than I am now, on paper. I'm doing step work in my apartment one day, and I had back then they had the paper pay stubs. And I'm in my bedroom getting a book out of something. He's like, dude, why are you so happy? He's like, I won't get out of bed for this. And he's dead. Because he chased that dollar. And so anything I'm doing in Alcoholics Anonymous is because I want to drink again. My life here depends on every action that I take. And I'm watching my friends come in and leave at 5 years sober, 6 years sober, and they can't get back to Alcoholics Anonymous sober. And everything good in their life is because they landed here. Everything good in my life is because of you guys. Everything good in my life because I came back broken. And that brokenness is what lets the light in. I've never helped anybody through my successes because there hasn't been many successes, right? And God will use broken jars to carry his water. And I'm broken. And like Peter says, I don't know if I'm ever going to be whole, because I think if God rendered me white as snow, like Chris was talking about, I wouldn't need God. I'm not a perfect Alcoholics Anonymous member. I fall short. I missed the mark a lot, and I wish I didn't. I missed the mark a lot, and I wish I hadn't. Because steps 8, 9, 10 are all about being wrong. Not when I'm bad, about me being wrong. I'm wrong a lot. I'm wrong in my home group a lot. I'm wrong with sponsees a lot. I'm wrong with my parents a lot. I'm definitely wrong at work a lot. It's funny. You ever talk to AA to someone who's not in AA? It's good. You'll stop guys right in their tracks. I'm in work a couple of weeks ago, and a boss gives me a job to do. I'm like, and he's in his office, I'm in my office, and he comes back in like 10 minutes later. He's like, dude, what are you doing? I said, I'm praying for the willingness to be willing. He said, just go home. Just go. I'm like, peace out. So, you know, I love talking AA to people that aren't in AA. And every time I came back to Alcoholics Anonymous, I would have these ideas that I could stay sober without making amends, without writing a force out, without sponsoring other guys. And what I would do is every time I came back, I would tell people, you know, I'm gonna go back to school and be a lawyer. Like, no, you ain't. Stop. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna get a good girl. I'm gonna do all this stuff. And every time I came back in, I would always do the same thing. I would dream, I would drink, and then I would die in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't know you could get progressively worse sitting in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, making a lot of meetings. You know, our big book's pretty clear. It talks about this thing called the phenomenon of craving, that once I start drinking, I can't stop. It talks about this mental obsession that when I'm stopped, I can't stay stopped on my own. And it also talks about a psychic change and a spiritual awakening. If I had the first two, I better get the second two. And I better stay in this work, because what happens is what can be removed can be returned. I watch it over and over again. There's friends of mine with 25, 30 years sober. I never thought they'd drink again. They drank and they're dead. I watched it. We found one guy frozen on his porch. So I watch. You know, one of the lines in chapter 3 talks about, you know, the guy relapses and they ask him to tell his story, and it's most instructive. So if someone asks me to work with them, or I go into a rehab, which I have the opportunity to go in many rehabs, detoxes, and jails, and someone will say, yeah, I had 20 years sober. I'm like, but you're sitting in detox. I said, what did you do? What happened? And I hit him with the same things my sponsor hit him with. Hit me with. I said, when you relapsed, you hearing fifth steps? They kind of look at you kind of strange. Were you sitting quietly with that power that keeps you sober? They look at you, a little stranger. Then you say, did you make all your amends? They look at you really strange then. I think there's a big difference between making all my amends and all but two. Because those two are the ones that are going to take me out. I never knew that before. And part of this deal for me is carrying these principles back into my parents' life and into my family life. And I watched my sponsor do that. I watched my sponsor, he stole from Walgreens a lot. And so what he does, he made his amends at Walgreens. And what he does is when he goes into Walgreens, he won't park close to the store. He'll park far away. And how I know that is because I experienced that. At like 35 days sober, he said, you get 35 days, I'll buy you toiletries. I'm like, so I'm using jail soap, I'm using I don't even have no clothes. And we were driving up to Walgreens to get my toilet. I wanted Axe soap, I wanted, the Biologics shampoo, all that good stuff, right? And going to Walgreens, and I'm like, look, dude, it was pouring rainy. I'm like, look, dude, God's good. There's a parking spot right in front. And he's going for the parking spot. He makes a left, parks 2 blocks on Frankfurt Avenue, and says, he hands me $40 and goes, go get your stuff. I'm like, dude, there's a spot right back there. He's like, no. We saved that spot. We saved that spot for the pregnant women and the elderly. I'm like, I thought he was kidding. I'm like, it's pouring rain out. He's like, oh, you don't want them? I'm like, all right, I'll go. And my mom's biggest fear was me dying before her, or any one of her kids dying before her. And there's a friend of mine that used to say all the time, you better do the work. You better do the work before you need it, and don't let anybody read your big book for you. You better do the work before you need it. I'm like, what's that even mean? You gotta do the work before you need it. And part of that work was step 9. And in 2015, I was diagnosed with cancer. And I wasn't feeling good. I go to the hospital. There's no step for that. I'm not feeling well. I go into the emergency room, and they tell you I have cancer. And so what I did was I get off to the side. I did what you guys told me to do. I'm off to the side. I found a classroom. I got the the gown where your butt hangs out. I scurried down the hallway and I jumped off into this classroom. I just got on my knees, started praying. And the prayer that came out was, God, this will never change our relationship. And I went back into that room, and I was diagnosed with stage 3 testicular cancer. So if any of you guys are praying for your lust to be removed, you better stop it. It doesn't work unless you're prepared to go to any lengths. Some days I don't know if I'm a wallflower or a starfish. And I was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer. I went through 4 major operations and had my hip replaced, had my breast removed, and whatever. And I got real serious about Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm living blood test to blood test. There's a great musician who says, the future's uncertain and the end is always near. And it gave me new life to be here. I'll tell you what, I got real busy with amends. I went back on Facebook since Facebook was made for step 9. I went back, I'm like, my sponsor, he was talking about dreams. My sponsor, he's like, dude, you don't have drunk dreams no more, do you? I'm like, nah, he's like, you dream about heaven and hell because you're old. I'm like, I said, yeah, I kind of do. And I want to clean up all this stuff before God takes me home. And the conveyor belt of life comes around. I don't think any of us are exempt from it. Bill talks about certain trials and low spots are coming. And some days there's been a lot of suffering. And a lot of days there's been silence. Some days have been ordinary. Some days have been extraordinary. Some days have been amazing. Some days have been routine and mundane. And I don't think no one's exempt from that. And that's a conveyor belt of life. And because it's not those stuff that'll take me out. It's accumulation of the little things that will take me out. It's not the death of a loved one. It's not my parents getting sick. It's not me getting sick. It's accumulation of the defects that Chris was talking about. They're accumulated, and I'm not making an amends for it. I want to get free. My sponsor always would tell me, you better get free. How free do you want to get? I never knew, like Meek Mill says, there's levels of this stuff. Right? And our book talks about not making amends, leading off with God. Now, I didn't even know I was doing this at the time. I worked in this building with 2,500 people. And what I see is 2,500 little ATM machines. And if I can borrow money from people on one floor on one non-pay week, and then borrow money from another floor or another non-pay week, I just keep paying people back like robbing Peter to pay Paul and keep my load going. And what happened was, there wasn't a floor I could work on anymore. I was so full of fear, I had everybody in the building money. And then I relapsed hard and got locked up. So, and through the amends process, I made amends. I went back into that job and I made amends, not with no intention of getting that job back. I didn't want that job back at all. But they came up on the list. I took the L in the subway in Center City. I made my amends to my 3 bosses. And a few months later, the union calls. And they said, "We got your job back." Immediately got fear. I was just crippled with fear. I owed everybody money there. And making my amends, I had to sneak in with the stairway. I went back ways. I was going like this. No one would see me. So the day came for my first day back at work. I was about 6 months sober. My boss had my 8-step list for me. He had a spreadsheet that was 3 pages long. He said, "What did you do?" I said, "I don't know. I don't remember." Right? And I wasn't even doing preludes. So there was this one little old lady that I owed money to. She was way past retirement age. She should have retired a long time ago. So I figured she has money. So what I borrowed off her was $33. I don't know where the $3 came from. I guess I must have needed a hot dog. I don't know where the $3 came from. I know what I needed the $30 for. I don't know what the $3 was for. So I made my amends to her, and I said, "Listen," I said, "I owe you money. I had a drinking problem, and I'm sober now, and this is what we do here." So I gave her back her $33. And a couple days later, I'm in my paint shop. I was a painter. I'm mixing up paint, and I feel someone looking at me. You ever feel someone staring at you? Like, I turn around, and I see her head go like this, and I see her scurry off into the parking lot. I'm like, "That's weird." Then I'm in the lunchroom a couple days later. I'm reading a big book, and the door had that window, the real thin window, and her eyeballs pressed up against it. I'm like, and then she sees me. I catch her, and she goes like this. I'm like, "What's going on?" So I see her a couple of weeks later, and she asked me, "Are you still sober?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm still sober." She said, "Good." A couple months go by. She said, "Are you still sober?" I said, "I'm still sober." She said, "Are you a Jesus freak?" I said, "No, but I have a God of my understanding." I said, "That's a weird question to ask somebody." A couple months go by, "You're still sober?" "Yep." A couple weeks go by, and she's in tears. And she comes to my paint shop in tears, and she says, my niece is walking Kensington Avenue. Do you think you can help her?" I'm like, "I guess." I said, "She borrowed money off you?" She went, "Yep." I said, "Tomorrow's payday. Have her come in, get the money, and I'll talk to her." Sure as God made apples, 12 o'clock, I get a text message. She's in the office. So I go up there and I talk to her, and she's not buying into what we're selling. Her aunt gives her $20. I give her $20, hoping that would escalate things. And on her way, she went. I come in work Monday morning, and they're both at my paint shop waiting for me. I'm like, "What's going on?" She says, "I need help." I said, "Beautiful." I put them both in my car, took them to Kensington Detox. She went to Kensington Detox. From Kensington Detox, she went to Miramont. From Miramont, she went to Florida. And the last I heard, she was sober a few years, running a sober living facility for women. All because what happened was her aunt said if I was a Jesus freak, she wouldn't listen to me. Because she had an overdose of religious learnings as a child. And I just told her, I didn't talk about God. I just told her about the allergy and the obsession and why she can't stop. And that's what happens here. That's what happens. You know, I also borrowed money from the head of probation and parole. I worked for the state, so head of probation and parole was in my building, the building I worked in. And Mr. Jones was his name. He was about 6'9", played football for Temple. He was a beast. And I borrowed $50 from him and told him it was for my kids. I don't even have kids. And he has access to a computer. He was Googling me. He was doing background checks on me. And he was hot because on that spreadsheet it had him circled, underlined, and 4 stars next to it. So I'm pacing back. It was a Friday before Memorial Day weekend. I'm pacing back and forth his office. I go, this guy's going to beat me to a pulp. My sponsor was like, then you ain't got to worry about paying him. If he kills you, don't worry, then you're good. And so I go in and I pay him. I said, I had a drinking problem. He's like, yeah, no crap. Told me you had kids. Pulling on my heartstrings. I'm like, all right. So I give him back his money. He's like, come here. He's there. You know, I understand alcoholism. I'm head of probation and parole. I understand it. He's I have a daughter that's in it. So what's going to happen is this. How you're going to make this right is when a guy relapses, and we're going to send him back upstate to do his back time, instead we're going to send him to you. I heard you have some recovery houses that you're working with. You're going to put him in his recovery house. You're not going to charge him no rent, and you're going to work with him. All right? That's exactly what happened for a couple of years till he retired. Whenever a guy had relapse for something like an accumulation of minor offenses, and sending him back upstate wouldn't be the answer. He would call me up. I would put him in a recovery house, and he said, no, you're going to pay his rent. I'm like, what? He said, you're going to pay his rent. And every once in a while, I'll get a guy, get him in a recovery house, and I would pay his rent. And sometimes it didn't last. Sometimes a couple guys are still sober in different fellowship. And that's how it works. I didn't even know I was going by the book. My sponsor didn't dangle the promises over my, like a piece of cake. My sponsor didn't read the promises to me. My sponsor didn't put them in fancy categories like now, maybe, later, never. Like sometimes I do that with my guys, do the now ones. People you're willing to make amends to, you know where they're at. Just go make them. My sponsor goes, here's your list. Make amends. Don't call me back until you do. And he took me to make my first 2. And I'll tell you what, I was amazed before I was halfway through. And somewhere in step 12, I came to believe. In step 12, I came to believe in step 2. Something started to happen to me I can't understand, other than God couldn't with a few with salt. And I can't carry the past around with me expecting to be at peace. The 4th step deals with resentments and fear, and the 4th and 9th step is dealing with my guilt, shame, and remorse. But guilt, see, if you're like me, guilt don't mean nothing. Because if I get no chance of getting caught, there's no guilt attached to it. The further I get away from the offense, and there's no chance of me getting caught, it's forget about it. I'll tell you what eats my lunch is the guilt, is the shame and remorse. That's what jams me up. That's the stuff that keeps me up at night, the chatter in my head. Right? And I like the way Pete talked about the voices in our head. I can't trust the voices in my head. Because the same voice that says don't drink is the same voice that tells me to drink. The same voice that says don't text her, this is dysfunctional, is the same voice that says, oh, she's so cute, just text her. So these voices in my head are the problem. And what happens here, there's a movement. Where I don't have to think, I don't have to use this. Like there's a difference between my brain and my mind. If you ever lived in a recovery house, you know that there's dishes in the sink all the time. I come home from work and I go get something to eat and there's dishes in the sink. Now my brain says, put soap on a sponge, run hot water, clean the excess food off, rinse them, wash them, put them in a cup. My mind goes, I ain't doing that, I ain't dirty them. Why am I doing that? That's what happens here. My mind will talk me right out of making amends. If I had the opportunity, that's why I love both my sponsors. That they got me through this work without using this. And what we have here is peace. The promises will always come true, especially them 10-step promises. We go through the 12 steps, something starts to happen, that problem gets removed from us. And the problem is the mental obsession. And it's open to anybody. It's open to all of us. And I'm the kind of guy that didn't want to hear about God, didn't want to believe in God. And in the amends process is when I got carried to and placed in a position of trusting and relying upon God, which keeps me sober. So I know the 12 steps don't keep me sober, the big book don't keep me sober, my sponsees don't even keep me sober. I hate all of them. Right? We told Mark it was tomorrow, and yet here he is. Right? I know my home group don't keep me sober, and being in service to a home group don't keep me sober. It's all those things combined, that has carried me to and placed me in a position of trusting and relying on power, trusting and relying on that power that I find in these rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I ain't got to look very far for God. I'm looking right at him. It's Saturday night. We all should be drunk, or at least hung over somewhere, or behind some dumpster. But yet here we are. And it's language of the heart. It's always been language of the heart. Before this big book was written, AA was 4 years old. And what happens to me, living close to my home group, is that sometimes people would get dropped off on my doorstep. And this particular night, Nebraska's playing Oklahoma. I just ordered a Santucci's pizza. It's snowing out. I got my sweats on. I ain't doing nothing. Like Chris said, I'm shutting down for the night. My sponsor texts me, yo, I'm sending a guy over. I'm like, yeah, for what? I said, it's Nebraska's kicking off. He said, you're going to go through the steps with him. I said, oh no, you're going to go through the steps with him. All right? And he came over, and he had a four-step, it was written. He had 6 notebooks of his story. I walked over, and I threw him out my window. And I said, that's not out of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And as we sat watching the game, I even gave him a piece of pizza, which I wasn't real happy about. And as we sat watching that game, something started to happen. In that language of the heart, I started to have compassion for another human being. And another particular night, this older gentleman had come over. I heard all this commotion outside of my house, and I went outside to see what was going on. And there's this older guy. I say old. He needed a drink, and he had all this luggage on my steps. I'm like, and there was a young girl in the car, and she said, "That's my father. He's drinking himself to death, and we can't take it no more. Can you help him?" And then she left. I'm like, all right. Auburn's playing in Alabama, which was another pizza, and now I'm stuck with this dude. I'm like, and what happens is I bring him upstairs. I call my sponsor. I'm like, yo, dude, I got a dude here. I don't do him, but he needs a drink. He needs something. And I'm trying to hit him with the first step and the second step, and he ain't buying into what we're selling. I run back outside, call my friend Marie. Like, Marie, well, I don't know what to do with this dude. I said, where's his beds at? I need a bed somewhere. And she said, I'll work on the bed. You go back upstairs. You keep working with him. So I said, all right. So I go back upstairs, and he says, I got it. I'm like, you got what? He said, I got steps 1 and 2. I'm like, you do? And this guy's not sober. He's lit and needs another drink. He's starting to shake a little bit. And I said, okay, explain steps 1 and 2 to me. He said, I'm like your cat. I'm like, dude, where's my cat at? I was like, where's my cat? I said, your cat's safe. Your cat's in your bedroom. I'm like, yeah. He's there. And my bedroom door is never shut because the cat has free reign in the house. And I'm like, he's your cat. The combination of her tail and the wind, the door closed behind her. I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, she got herself in there, and if you listen real close, she knows how to get out. I'm like, I'm listening to this drunk dude. So he said, put your ear next to the doorknob. I'm like, he's like, and you can hear little paws hitting the doorknob. I'm like, keep going. He's there. She got herself in there. She can't get herself out. What she needs is a power greater than herself, a power with hands. I went, oh my God, dude. That's the best description of steps 1 and 2 I ever heard by a drunk guy. I was like, you got to be kidding me. That's just something. And what happened was, I got him in a recovery house. He stayed a few days, and he refused medical treatment. He would not go into detox. He went to live with his daughter, and he died 5 or 6 days later from an alcoholic detoxification. His brain seized. He was in my life for about an hour and a half and changed the way I do step work, changed the way I do things. I was that guy that was so wrapped up with the big book, because it's an experience. You have an experience with this big book, you start worshiping, you run around AA. I was trying to 12-step people that weren't even in AA. I'm in CVS, Walgreens, McDonald's, trying to tell people about, if I even seen you close your eyes for more than 30 seconds, you were getting 12-step. I'm running around, Alcoholics Anonymous, trying to 12-step everybody. I'm trying to 12-step guys with 30 years sober, and they're scratching their head. And one old timer pulled me aside and said, "Rick, it's a clear sign you had an experience. It's also a clear sign you need a new one." And he kind of took me out to get something to eat that night, and he kind of explained to me how I was trying to jam this big book down people's throat, and it wasn't productive. And my home group is a stepping stone. It was 1971. It was formed. I'm in first grade trying to figure out what 2 plus 2 is, and the Stones opens up, and thank God it was a safe place when I got there. Because I don't know, I'm watching my nieces and nephews very close. You ever watch your family? They're looking at them, yeah. We got a seat for you. And when my 22-year-old niece comes in, hopefully not, but if she ever needs help, I know where to send her. I know where the women that are on fire with this stuff, and they're going to teach her, and they're going to love her. And that's what my sponsor would say. I go around the Stones, and he would call me up. He said, "What you learned at the meeting today?" I said, "I'm 5 minutes from the miracle." He's like, "You ain't 5 minutes from nothing until you make these amends. Then you make these amends, and watch what happens to that miracle. It's going to blossom right in front of you." And I would say stuff like, "You're going to love me and like I love myself." And he would say, "Who told you that?" I said, "Beauty Salon Betty." He said, "Stay away from Beauty Salon Betty." He said, "I'm going to love you until you can learn how to love somebody else. Because loving you has been your problem your whole life." And that's how he talked to me. He talked to me like a drunk. He didn't talk to me, he talked to me in a way I can hear him. He talked to me in a way that he got me to listen because he talked my language. He didn't talk down. He got me to do things that no judge, no PO, no girlfriend, no family member can do. And he got me to listen because he was just like me. And he told me the experience that he had. He told me his experience that he had with the men's. And if he didn't share his experience with me with the men's, I might not be here today. I'm watching guys I work with leave big chunks of their amends list out. Not because they're bad guys, because they think they can. And now I'm back in it. Now I'm running the show again. And I'm watching it. So what we have here is peace of mind, and it's open to anybody. But if somebody sat down with you and spent time, like my sponsor would say to me, whatever we do, just show somebody else. Because this isn't all about relationships. This is the first time I'm taking my recovery out there. Like Pete was talking about, it's a journey inward. We're coming in. First 7 steps are inward. Now I'm making a list, I'm going to take it outward. It's all about relationships. The first 3 steps are right relationship with God. Steps 4 through 7 is right relationship with self, which like Chris was talking about, which is no relationship. And steps 8 and 9 is relationship with you guys and my family and everybody else. And we go through the first 9 steps, something happens, we get rocketed. I haven't been rocketed in years. I want to get rocketed. Go through these first 9 steps, something happens. And what happens is there's 4 dimensions of existence. There's height, width, depth, and time. And I can live right here, right now, the same way 5 shots of vodka made me present to the moment. It's all about relationships. And when all my relationships are on all 4 cylinders, there's nothing for a drink or a drug to fix. I'm already fixed. And like Pete said, it only happens here. It only happens here. I joined the church group. I've drifted away from AA for a minute and drank again. And all this stuff just happens here. It's language of the heart. One drunk or another drunk. Peace, guys. Thanks for letting me share.
Let's thank you, Rick. Epic job. Thank you. We're going to take take a quick 5, 7, 10-minute break, please. When you come back, squeeze in as tight as you can so we can try to utilize all these seatings. No smoking on church property, be mindful of that.